really nice when you're interacting as well and you're getting involved. I don't feel like I'm talking to a screen then. Yeah, so feel free to chat to me, put your questions, anything that's coming up for you, even if there is, you're feeling like what I'm saying is resonating, feel free to just let me know what your thoughts are. And I can see there's already some comments there. So just thinking about it, thank you for sharing. I've just completed the initial part. Okay, so right at the beginning for for one of you just thinking about it. So you're still in that process where you're wondering if this is the right thing for you. And it's really good that you are now immersing yourself and trying to find answers. It's quite an agonizing decision, isn't it? And when you're in that place, you need to think carefully, you need to get information and then start making that decision. And if you've only just completed the initial part, there's still a journey. I hope that journey is as easy as possible for you. But yeah, you will get through this. And I hope things are amicable for you as well. Okay, so thank you for sharing. For those of you that haven't been before, I'll just do a little bit of housekeeping, let you know what happens on these sessions. So I talk for about 20 minutes on whatever the subject is. I tell you a little bit about how to work with me, and I then answer your questions. So although I'm talking about children today, feel free to ask me questions, anything around what's coming up on arrangements for children. But if you do have other questions as well, feel free to put them in the chat box too, and I'll come to them if I have time. Obviously, I'll try and deal with the children-related questions first, but if there is time, then I'm happy to answer questions that around any subject around divorce. So the session lasts about 45 minutes, just so you're aware. I try and keep the time short because I know that everyone's so busy and I don't really want to take up too much of your time. So that's a little bit about how the session works. We have them every Wednesday on different topics. So every Wednesday, at the moment, they're at 9 o'clock. They may end up being at 9:30 later. But around this time, you'll see sessions that I've put on every week, usually. So lovely to have you here. Really nice that you found your way over to these sessions. I've heard people find them really useful, so I'm glad you are here. So let me start sharing my screen. And while I'm doing that, I'll just tell you a little bit about who I am. My name is Bhavna. My profession previously to this was a family lawyer. I've been there, I've done all of the different aspects of family law. And yeah, I really liked my role. I really liked that, what I was doing. And then I found myself going through a divorce 13 years ago. And I was where you guys are. I spent years probably agonizing over the decision, trying to get to that point of, is it the right thing for me? And I know I kept putting it off. There was never a right time until one day the pain got too great. And we stay where we are until the pain does get too great. And when I got to that point where I thought, okay, I have to do this now, as much as I made the decision, it was a really painful decision. It's not one that I ever wanted. It's not one that I was happy to take. But I got to that point where it was the only option for me. Once I made that decision, I thought I would feel relieved and things would be a little bit easier. But in fact, it is quite a hard process. Emotionally, I really did struggle. Luckily, I know the law. I knew the process. I knew how to do things myself. So I didn't need to engage anybody to help me. But even then, my emotions were all over the place, and I was almost shocked at how hard this felt. Separating your lives, separating your finances, the effect that it has on your children, your mental health. That all this was massive learning for me, and actually I was quite shocked at what my clients had been going through for so many years. It took a few years, but we got through, and the divorce was finalized. And at this point, I was looking to go back. I mean, I was back in practice, but looking to find something else that worked better for me because it felt really empty to me being back in practice as a lawyer. And now that I'd been through it, I wanted to do something more to help my clients. So I set up my own business and felt that I could offer something a little bit different. And so that is what I do. And 13 years on, I have three businesses. And so I can tell you that you feel like your life is coming to an end, but actually it's the start for me of an exciting new chapter. So it takes time before you feel like that. There's a lot of healing and a lot of work to do before then. But I do believe that sometimes we have to go through discomfort to get the benefits and the joy on the other side. So yeah, that's my story. And I wanted to share that with you because I like you to know that I understand what you're going through. I have been there. I've got three daughters. They're now much older. They're 23, 20, and 15. So they're much older, but at the time, my youngest was one. And yeah, when you've got very young children, you worry about the effect on them. So I completely understand the kind of things that you guys will be thinking about and worrying about. And that's why I put these sessions on really to give you information, guidance, and help. So let me share my screen. I want to get on to the important part, which is giving you information and being in that place where I can start moving things forward for you and explaining some of the things that you need to think about and do. And of course, our children will be a priority in the divorce. And actually, you worry about the effect that this will have on them. I certainly did. I worried so much about what effect what I was doing because I felt so guilty, what I was doing would have on them. And I thought that they would drop out of education. They probably would make nothing of their lives. They would hate me forever. You know, you think of all of these things that could happen. And actually, none of it happened. These are the things that held me back, but none of it happened. They're settled. They believe it was the right thing that I did. Their dad is settled. Everybody seems to have moved on with from where we were. So it's great that they've settled down in this life that we have, which is a little bit different, but yeah, they get the benefit of both parents, which is a great thing. And are you worried about the effect of this divorce on your children? It might be something coming up for you because you've lived with them 24/7. You've been involved with them all of this time, and suddenly now you have to think about being apart from them. You have to think about their mental health, their well-being. And them being away from you for a length of time. I really struggled with this. The thought of my children being away from me was really hard. And so many people mention this to me. And I can see that my son is very attached to me and struggles with transition, given his young age. And I guess his attachment is 50-50 custody, really in his best interest. Really good question, and I'll definitely go into that. We have to think about what is best for them. But sometimes it can be, well, it's often a good idea for children to spend time with the other person as well. Over time, it gets easier with them being away from you. I kind of felt like they filled up my time. I didn't know who I was without my children. They were my social life. On a Saturday evening when they were with their dad, I just didn't have a clue who I was, what I was supposed to do. And I couldn't get my head full. I did spend a lot of time crying for the first many, many months of the children going to their dads and being away from me. And I worried that they couldn't cope without me. I worried, what if something happened? How will they be? Um, what exactly is happening to them when they're not with me? And so these were all the things that came up for me. And I know that you guys are going to have to look at these things as well. And so I wanted to really take you through different elements of making these arrangements for children. And the first thing is the benefit of contact for children. There's lots of studies showing that during a divorce, there is lots of benefits for them having time with both parents. And I qualify this as long as there are no safeguarding issues. It's good for them to spend time, but where there are safeguarding issues, then that might have to be priority. Good quality contact is going to help them with all of these different things: sense of security, stability. It helps them adjust to what is happening. These are major transitions for them. And obviously, we have to help them to move forward. And spending time with both of you will help them adjust and see that both parents are actively involved in their lives. That it promotes healthy development with both of them with them seeing both parents. If children have a positive relationship with both parents, they develop better emotionally and socially as well, and can help them academically and with behavioral problems as well. The courts say that it also helps with parental alienation. Where both parents are seeing the child or children, then it means that negative consequences from parental alienation are minimized. So there's definitely good benefits with having contact. Before we talk about how you get to a plan, it's really important for you to understand a little bit about the law and how the courts interpret arrangements for children and what they take into account. So the Children Act is the primary legislation that looks at children in England and Wales. And where both parents are married, when they have their child, they would both have parental responsibility for that child. So you've both got the same rights and responsibilities. And even where you're not married and say the father is not named on the birth certificate, he would not have parental responsibility automatically. But actually, it's quite easy to apply and get parental responsibility if you are the biological father of the child. But assuming that all of you do have parental responsibility towards your children, what does this mean? It means that you've got rights and responsibilities towards that child. And what that means in practice is that you both make decisions for your children around the care and welfare for them. Any decision you make has to be in the best interests of your child. And so any big decisions you both get input in. So education, religion, where the child lives, anything like that, medical, both of you would be making decisions. And for most people during a divorce, they're separating and they happily make these big decisions for their children. For some people, these decisions get a bit difficult because maybe you were on the same page around education previously. When you're going through a divorce, maybe your views are different. Maybe you're both enforcing your views. Maybe it's really hard to get to an agreement. And so it can get tricky making these big decisions as well. So think about how these conversations can happen around education, medical, religion, the area that you live in as well. And I'll talk a little bit about what happens if you can't get to an agreement. But what do the courts take into account if they were considering the best arrangements for a child? So the first thing is always the welfare of the child. What is in the best interests of the child? And to the person that asked that question, it is that you have to sort of search within yourself and think, is this the best thing for my child? if they cannot cope with transitions, how could we lessen the effect on your son? And I know you said your son is really attached to you. And so it may be that going straight into 50-50 is not the right thing for him. And it may be a tiered arrangement where you start off with maybe a Saturday and then you move on to, say, a day and a half. And then slowly that becomes 2 days. And you work it through like that so that you've got an arrangement that is in your child's best interest, taking you both out of it, because he may struggle to go straight to 50-50. And I don't think that sounds like the right thing for him. So you can see how the courts would take the child's welfare as priority. And you have to do that when you are considering really what is in your child's best interest. And I know it's really difficult to the person that asked that question. I know it's really difficult saying, I don't think this is in his best interest, because the other person thinks that you're just doing it for your best interest, for the fact that you can't let go. But if you did take that away, and I'm sure that's there, I struggle to let go. When you look at that and you look at what is actually best for your child, I think that we have to come up with the solutions that actually work for the child. That means that they're less affected, that they can deal with this transition in a better way. So you have to take that as priority. That is the most important thing. What is good for the child? What will make this transition easier for the child? What can we do to protect their mental health and how affected they are? And that will be priority in the finances. It will be priority when you're looking at the plan for the child. So across the board, we have to look at their welfare. But there are other factors that we have to look at as well. And obviously they're not as overarching as, the child's welfare, but these are other things that we need to look at. The first one I'm going to talk about is the child's wishes and feelings. Lots of you will ask me, well, my child is this age. How can their wishes and feelings be taken into account? Or they've got very strong views. How does that come into it? So they are taken into account, but it obviously depends on their age and the level of understanding. So a child who is aged 14 is very different to a child aged 4. Also, we have to accept that children have a different level of understanding. It's not always down to their age. So we have to base it on that as well. So think about, what does your child want? What are they saying about where they want to live? And we obviously, you can't just go with what your child is saying. A 8-year-old child might say, today I want to live with mum. And when mum says you've got to do your homework and you've got to get to bed and you have to have a bath and gets a little bit strict, then it will be, I want to live with dad. And then dad will be doing those same things, saying you've got to get to bed at a certain time, you've got to put your devices down. And then it will be, I want to live with mum. And so you can't completely take your child's wishes into account. You can use it for information. You can use it for how are they feeling about things. But obviously, as they get older, there is more weight put on what they are saying. So a 15-year-old saying, this is what I want, carries more weight. But obviously, we do take into account a little bit about, what a younger child is saying. Sometimes I've heard younger children saying, I don't want to go to that parent's house because I'm left alone for long periods. And obviously, that could be a safeguarding issue. It may not be a safeguarding issue, but it may be the wishes and feelings of that child. So we think about that. We don't completely follow it because they don't always know what is in their best interests as well. So you've got to balance that. The other factor that is really important is the child's health, emotional, and educational needs. Some children have health needs. Some children have very specific ways that things need to happen because of their health needs. It might be regular medical appointments. It may be transitions, as the person was saying in the chat box. It may be that there's something particular you have to do for them, vaccinations, medical appointments, medication. It may be they have quite quite extreme health needs, and you've had your house adapted to fit those needs. So which parent is able to meet these needs? It might be that one parent is working part-time or not working to look after the child and meet their specific needs, and the other parent is working. And so therefore, it may be that there's an obvious answer as to how you meet your child's health needs. Health needs can be mental health needs as well. What do you need to do around your child's mental health? How can you support them? How can you make plans for your child that meets their mental health needs as well? You have to both work together to get to that place where you have a plan that works for the children. It's obviously we have to take you into account if one person's doing shifts, if one person can't take time off on a Monday, if they can't do school holidays, these things that you guys will have as adults that revolve around your working lives and other things, that has to be taken into account as well. But we have to balance it alongside what the child needs. And then educational needs. We need to make sure that wherever possible, the child stays in the same school, has the same support network, has the same friends, just because it's easier for them to transition if you can look at keeping things the same. So it may be that one of you will live close to the school, and so it makes sense for you to do weekday contact so that you can drop them to school and pick them up. The other parent may not live so close to the school, so it may then be a whole time frame for traveling. So think about what arrangements you are making for education and then how you can make the plan for the children around that, because it is in their best interest to stay where they are, as long as they are happy and doing well in that school. So think about their education needs and what you need to do to try and safeguard them around that as well. The child's age is relevant as well. If the child is really young, then you need to think about the timings that you're doing handover. So a child that, a 2-year-old, it may be that it's not in their best interest for one parent to drop off at 8 p.m. because they should be asleep by 7 p.m. You may realize that your child needs to be asleep by 7 p.m. So actually doing handovers at 8 p.m. doesn't work too well. It might be that if they're young, they might have to, they may need to go to, they may be going to nursery, and possibly both parents need to be able to drop off and pick up from nursery. If one parent can't, then what happens? Is it that the first parent just has more time? So you need to take age into account. If your child is 10, then again, they still may need to sleep at a certain time, maybe not 7 p.m., but maybe they still need time to get home, get into bed, have some sort of time where they relax before they go to sleep. And so you need to look at these sort of times. We need to look at school holidays. We need to look at where you collect from, school activities, extracurricular activities. So if there is a child that does, say, a sporting activity all day Saturday, how will you arrange contact so that the child can still get to their activity as much as possible? And maybe one parent always takes to that activity, or do you swap that Saturday so you both go alternate weekends? How can you do this so that the child does not get affected, things don't change so much for them, yet you both need to have good quality contact as well. So age is really relevant. Previous pattern of care. And although the law tells us that this is a factor, we do need to take it into account. So who has been there looking after the child up until now? Is there one person that is the main carer? Is there a reason why they are the main carer? Is it because they work part-time to fit in around the child? Is it that they can meet mental health, physical health needs? Is there another reason? Is the other person working shifts? What is the reason why that person has been the main carer? Is there a way we can keep that status quo, at least in the short term, so that the child isn't affected so much by things changing drastically? That doesn't mean, though, that the parent that has been the main breadwinner, for example, who's worked long hours, shouldn't change their working patterns so they can be more involved with the children. I see it quite a lot that when you're going through a divorce, parents will change things so they're both involved. And then you've got one parent who hasn't been the main carer who says, I want 50-50 now. And it's a shock to you if that hasn't been the case before. We do have to understand that both parents would like to spend equal time with the children, but it may not be something you jump straight into. It may be that because of the previous pattern of care, that the child wouldn't transition well into 50-50, and you might need to take that slowly. So think about how that has worked in the past. And I do understand that parents maybe that haven't spent as much time with the children in the past have suddenly realized they want to. They want to be involved. They want to see their child. And so they will adjust their lives. They will adjust their priorities so their child can spend more time with them. And the court does applaud that. They want to see parents, come together, work together, and adjust things for the benefit of their child. So don't be surprised if you see that. It does happen. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It can be difficult if you've been the main carer to let go. It can be difficult to know the child is going to be okay. But it's hard for the child. So it may be for both of you, there needs to be a period of transition. And also for the other parent, they need a period of transition rather than straight to 50-50 as well. But don't be surprised if you see that. An important one is any harm that the child has suffered or is at risk of suffering. That is a major factor that you need to consider. Really important consideration. If you believe that there are safety concerns around a parent spending time with the child, then you need to consider this. You need to think about how you adapt contact. So could it be that contact is supervised? Could it be that contact is supervised by a family member or friend, by yourself, by a contact center? So is that necessary? Is it necessary to put some conditions in place in contact, even if it's not supervised? Is it that you need to consider no contact? And for some children, they can't have contact with a particular parent just because of the safety concerns. So, what does your arrangement need to be to safeguard your child? Because it's not in their best interest to carry on suffering harm or be at risk of harm in the future. Where there is domestic abuse in the family, it can be said, and it depends on the extent of it, that the child, although they may not have suffered from direct abuse, that if they have witnessed domestic abuse, that they could still be a victim. And it might be that the courts would want to be very careful about how contact is arranged in that situation. So do think about that as well. There is a presumption with the court now that if there has been domestic abuse or there is allegations of domestic abuse, that contact should not take place until these have been looked into so that children are safeguarded. Really important to think about that. And then finally, how capable are you both of meeting the child's needs? For example, who can do the school runs? Who can manage homework, bedtime, after school clubs? Who has always looked after health needs, medication, vaccinations, mental health needs? Who lives nearer the school, has the support network that can help with the child with drop-offs just in case there's any issues. So think about how capable are you both of meeting needs. So it's something else to think about. So I've told you some of the factors the court takes into account. And these factors may mean that when you note them down, you know that there is an obvious answer, or there may be obvious things that you need to organize. For example, you might work in the office on a Monday and Tuesday, and you might find your ex-partner works in the office Thursday, Friday. And it may be obvious that on the days you're at the office, he or she has them. When they are in the office, you have the children. So there may be some obvious options available when you are looking at the factors that I've talked about already. But when we're looking at this, the first aspect is, where would the child live? Is there an obvious answer? Is there one person that would be looking after them mainly, and the other person would have contact? And contact could be one person has 4 days every week and the other person has 3 days every week. It's not quite 50-50, it's close to though. But would it be better to have a situation where one person has 5 days, the other person has 2? Is it better to go for alternate weekends? So think about these questions and why you think it's best for the child for that to happen. So who can meet the child's needs day to day? Who's the main carer? So looking at my situation at the time that I went through my separation, I wasn't working. The children were really young. There were three of them under 10. I did all the school runs. I did all the homework, bath time, swimming lessons, karate lessons, ballet lessons. The little one wasn't at nursery, so she was home full time. And school holidays. If both of us are working full time, what do we do? School holidays. So I wasn't working at the time. And so when we separated and he moved out of the family home, we started discussing how contact could work. And he was of the view that they should live with me, and I should carry on doing what I was doing because that's the previous pattern of care. I was able to meet the needs because I wasn't working at the time. He struggled because he was traveling a lot for work. And so there was an obvious answer for us. He decided that he would like every other weekend. So that's how it's been for 13 years for us, every other weekend. And initially I did all the holidays, and now we share the holidays because they're much older and they don't need so much looking after. So even if he's working from home, he can be around and the children can be there. So what is right for you? Where do your children have to live? What's best for them? So think about those things. And then how could contact work? If one of you is doing the main caring, how will contact work? And contact can be in different forms. It can be direct contact, which means that the other person comes and picks them up, spends time with them, and then drops them back off, for example. That's, one-on-one, face-to-face contact. Contact can be overnight. So it may be that you could pick up on a Friday and drop back off on a Sunday, pick up on a Friday, drop off on a Tuesday, for example. It could be something like that. So that's overnight contact. Then we have supervised, where there is somebody who keeps an eye, and supervised can be in a contact center where there's lots of children having supervised contact and a few staff members keeping an eye. Or it could be more stringent than that, where there is only the parent and the child and one person supervising. It could be in a contact center. It could be a family member or friend supervising as well. So does that have to happen for safeguarding reasons? Sometimes we see indirect contact, and that can be telephone calls, it can be video calls, it could be letters and gifts. Some parents have a mix. So they have overnight contact as well as some telephone contact. So it may be that they speak to the other parent every other day, and then there is some overnight contact as well. For some parents, they have no direct contact and they only have letters, telephone calls, and gifts. So you have to do what's best. And if it is best for no contact to happen, then it's important that you take that step, obviously, after getting legal advice. The courts really like 50-50. We never used to see it many, many years ago, but this seems to be something the court really likes. So both of you spending equal time with your children, if it is in the best interests of the children, and obviously if you can agree it as well. And 50-50 could be 1 week on, 1 week off. So week 1, you do 7 days, week 2, the other person does 7 days, and you carry on like that. Some parents really love this because they can concentrate on work for a week. They know what the schedule is. The child is not moving around so much. It's easier for the child, and it works well for them. So I know lots of parents that do a week on, week off. Then there are lots of parents that prefer to not go 7 days without seeing their children. So they prefer it having sort of 4 days 1 week, and the other parent has 3 days. And then on week 2, you have 3 days and the other parent has 4 days. So effectively, in 4 weeks, you're having the same amount of time. And then you share the holidays. So that is something that the courts really like, but obviously it's got to be in the best interest of the children. And just so that you know, if you have got a 50-50 arrangement, there's usually no child maintenance payable. It doesn't matter about income, because for child maintenance, there needs to be a non-resident parent and a resident parent. And if you've got 50-50 care, then both of you are resident parents. So it does make it a bit difficult. So making a plan, should you have a written plan? I would say that you should, so that everything is clear. It doesn't have to be in a certain format. It's not going to the courts. You are just deciding this for yourselves. So you can write this in any format that you like. Don't think it has to be set out in a very particular way. You can get parenting plans that are recommended, that are templated, but you don't have to follow that. You can do whatever you need to state what your plan is. You need to think about the schedule. So where will the child be on what days? Who is dropping off? Who is collecting, and where from? Think about what is the plan for term time and school holidays. Think about special days like birthdays, religious holidays, Mother's Day, etc. What happens if the other parent wants to take the child away and it's not their week? What happens with holidays abroad? So think about all of these things. And also decision making. You need to think about how you will make important decisions about your child's upbringing. You might say it's joint decision making. Both parents need to agree on major decisions, but the parent that is there doing the day-to-day care can manage the smaller decisions. Think about how you will communicate. Will you communicate just face to face on the telephone? Is that difficult for you? Would you prefer it to be by text message only and telephone call if it is urgent? Some parents have it so that it's only email communication and then telephone call if it is urgent. So think about how best can you communicate with the other parent. I used calendars that we could share, so Google Calendar, so that we both had the children's dates, holiday dates, birthday parties, dentist appointments, all of this stuff. And lots of parents right now are using Our Family Wizard. You can communicate via the app. You can put notes, you can put a budget, you can have a calendar, but there is a subscription for that. So just bear that in mind. And I know I've gone over time. Wow, talked too much today. If you don't have an agreement, and not everybody does, this is the ideal to get to an agreement. What happens then? There are a few options that you can sort of try. Family and friends to help you mediate to get to an agreement, constructive discussion. But you have to both trust the person that you are using. If you can't do that, then possibly mediation. Mediation can help you reach agreements through a third person who is a professional that is neutral. If you still can't get to an agreement, then it may be that you have to go to court. And this is really a last last resort because it's expensive and stressful. You really want to try and get to an agreement around all of this where possible. Okay, so what do I do? I'll jump on to, the service that I provide. I help you divorce with confidence, less stress, with a clear process, so you can move on to that life that you deserve. And quickly, I just wanted to take you through a case study. This is a client of mine. Obviously, I've changed her name. Amy has a child aged 10. She was really scared when she came to me. She was really unsure. She was desperate to stay amicable, not use lawyers, not go to court, and keep her costs down just purely because she didn't have the funds. She really wanted to stay in the family home, and that was her priority. She works full time just like her husband does, but she's the main carer for her child. She's changed her working patterns, taken different jobs so that she can pick up, drop off, and is around school holidays as well. Was really scared of the finances, but had little money for her legal fees. So we did get her to a point where we got to an agreement, and we did it in different ways. The first thing was getting this vision in place. So formulating this clear vision, looking at her priorities. What does she want to do? What's important to her? And how can we put a map in place to get there? And then we worked through her divorce application, and she informed her husband of the decision. We then went through financial disclosure, which is both of you being transparent about your finances so that we can come up with these financial proposals, talking about how we can share assets. We then went through, providing this balance and negotiating skills. I was helping her with negotiating because we were negotiating not just finances, but plans for the child. Through step-by-step work, we were able to manage her emotions. I helped her with negotiation, legal documents as well, proposals, answering every question she had, which meant she was able to complete her divorce within 7 months of working with me. She got a financial settlement, which she was very happy with. Saved her £150,000, she believes, saved her 20K on legal fees as well. She transferred the family home into her name. She's the main carer of the child, and dad is still very involved with the child, and they have managed to stay amicable, which is great. And she did this through my 6-month program, which covers more than just the legal process. I want you to be financially empowered so you understand your finances, you understand where you are going financially. We make a plan for your children, we write that plan, we are looking at how you can become more emotionally resilient and moving into that future self. It's not just about a legal process, because you are more than that. This thing that you will be going through is not just legal. There's emotional, practical, financial, lifelong implications, so we have to be careful. We do it through a one-to-one call to start with to make a plan. And we then move on to 3 weekly live calls that you can join to get your questions answered, to get me to look at documents, correspondence, communication. We talk about what you need to write back. It is you managing the process, but me guiding you. I would give you suggestions on what needs to be written, how it needs to be written. I help you write documents. I give you templates so that you can actually legally get through the process with me guiding and supporting you throughout. I answer all your questions. I'm there to plan your financial proposals with you to work out what's fair, what you would like to do, whether it's viable, whether it's possible. And we do this through the live calls and anytime messaging support as well. There's resources and templates for you to access. You have all the information you need to help you along this journey. So that's how it works. You can stay longer than 6 months if you need to, but obviously we're hoping that you won't. This is Amy's exact words. If you've already made the hard decision of getting a divorce, I'm the person that will help you get you there. It's not just about legal support, it's emotional support. And I make you think hard about your future and how you are going to get there. when you're in the thick of things, it's difficult to see what your life may look like on the other side. I'll help you see your current financial situations so decisions can be made with all options considered. It's useful to see what she could afford, understand how she could get where she wanted to be, and then obviously help with the legal forms, reassurance that they're completed correctly, and understanding the next steps. So that's basically what we work on. And these are, the rest of her words, and she has lots of words. So it's amazing that she shared so much. And I really appreciated that she felt that she would recommend me to anybody going through this. So that's always a great thing. Let's chat. So if you are looking to get help with your divorce, if you want to find out if the program is right for you, because it's really important that we do make decisions to work with the person that is right, feel free to book a call. Nelma will put the links in the chat box now. So book a call. Let's see where you're up to. Let's see if this is right for you, and we can talk that through. I do have a book. Feel free to get that on Amazon. And again, Nelma will put the link there so that you can purchase the book. It's actually not just a book to read. It's got worksheets in it to help you take action. And you can download these worksheets as well. So it's not just writing in the book. You can get downloadable resources around children, finances, mental health, journaling, across the board. So whatever you need. And there's lots of ways of getting in touch. Feel free to check me out on Instagram, follow me. You can leave a message on our website. YouTube is a good place to find any tips, any practical things that I'm sharing. There's lots of replays of these calls there as well. So feel free to have a look at that. And obviously subscribe so you get to know about any new things that I'm doing as well. Okay, so I'm going to quickly answer your questions because I've gone over. I love talking and it's a bit of a problem. So I think, Michelle, we may have answered your question. Let me know if you've got any other questions around this, but I may have answered it already. I think you need a tiered approach that is better for a young child. It's better for a child that maybe you've been the main carer for, and a child that will struggle with a 50-50 arrangement. It may be that you do something that is, as I said, you do for 3 months, every Saturday maybe, and then you move on to a bit more, and you might find that actually there is an obvious place where you stop because that's the best sort of contact arrangement for your son. I've got a direct message. Can I have a replay of last Wednesday's session as I had to leave in between? Yes, it should have been emailed to you, but I will just let you know where that is. You should be able to find it on YouTube. Nelma, would you be able to put a link to the last session so the person who sent that direct message can access it? I'm concerned that my ex-partner is not prioritizing our children's needs. He is focusing on his own interests and hobbies. My question is, what are some ways to address this concern with my ex-partner, and how can we ensure our children's needs are being met? Oh, wow, really interesting question. Thank you for asking that. It is such a difficult thing because if you say to him that I don't think that you are prioritizing the children, his defenses will go up. There'll be triggers there. Likely the conversation is not going to be very pleasant. And so it depends on what it is that is happening, I would say. Exactly how is it that he is not prioritizing the children's needs? I'm presuming from your next sentence that the hobbies come first. So if there's, I don't know, something like tennis, that he would rather go and do that, and he would say, I've got tennis today, I'm not coming to pick the kids up. And if that is what's happening, then actually the children having regular contact that is consistent is really important. You can't just chop and change with children. If the arrangement is that you pick up on Saturday at 9 o'clock, you can't say, well, actually, I don't feel like it today. I'll turn up on Sunday. It's not fair on the child that is dressed and ready to go. It's not fair on the child, even if they have a little bit of notice. if it happens all the time, it may mean that your arrangements just have to change so that he can find time for his hobbies and interests outside of the time he's supposed to have with the children. So I would have a conversation, of course, and say, look, I see that, it's difficult for you to be picking the children up every Saturday at 9 o'clock. I know that you always have things going on and off on a Saturday. Is it better for you and for the children that we just say 11 o'clock so that you can find time for the things you want and the children aren't sitting waiting, or we're not constantly changing time, to see if that helps address it. But you have to say it in a way that you're doing it for their benefit, not just for the children. Because as soon as they feel like you are criticizing, then defenses will go up, and it's a very difficult conversation. If you find that you've had a conversation and it doesn't do anything, I would say follow it up by text message, follow it up by email so you've got a trail. Maybe mention it a few times, and then at some point say, look, this isn't working for the children. I'm changing it to 11 a.m. And you're almost just saying rather than asking. So see how you get on with that, and I hope that answered your question. Okay, I know I've gone way over, so I'm going to leave it there. I hope you found today useful. Do let me know what you would have, what questions you've got that you would have liked answering. And is there anything you would have wanted me to cover on today's session that would have been helpful for you? So do let me know. Obviously, I'm always trying to improve these sessions. It's important that I bring exactly what you need on these sessions. So do let me know. It can be a private message. Nobody else needs to know that you said it. And it's very helpful for me as well. So lovely to see you all. I hope you have a good rest of the day, and I will catch up with you next week. And I would actually say we've got a more intense sessions coming up where I'll be talking to you for 4 days in a row. And that is starting you from the first step, which is you've made this decision, to finalizing your finances. So feel free to join those sessions as well. I think, Nelma, would you put a link in the chat box to those sessions? They're coming up on the 10th of February. And it's really a time for me to be able to go in a bit more detail so that I can guide you a bit more, and you can get some more shifts in what to do around all of this. So feel free to join that. I'd love to see you there. I think it would be really helpful for those of you that are going through this process. So feel free to sign up. I'll leave that there. And I'm going to come off camera now, and I'll leave you to jump on any links that you want to and leave me any feedback that you would like. It can be private, or any suggestions for future sessions, or even this session if I'm talking about children again. So do take care. It's lovely to see you.